interest, a topic that might be of interest, well, I hope it will be of interest because you are here, to most of you, which is open science. So we really believe that this can be something that may change many things in the way that in which we do science in the future. Well, we'll see. We will learn about that now with Eva. So Eva Méndez, she's a lecturer at the University Carlos III in Madrid. She holds a PhD in, I think it's called library sciences, right? She's an officer in many European agencies and networks. In particular, she's now one of the responsible in the, how is this is called, Open Science European Platform, Policy Platform, right? And she has been also, I think she was a Fulbright scholar in Carolina, in North Hill, right, North Chapel University. And I would say the most important thing is that she's one of the people that knows a lot about open science, about many of the things that we are worried about. And I'm sure that she will explain many of these things to us clearly, I hope. After that, we will have time for questions, for any comments that you may have, and I'm sure that she will be glad to answer that. So, welcome, Eva. My pleasure.
Hello, good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank very warmly the invitation because this is a real privilege for me. You know that when you are a researcher, you want to meet other researchers. But when you are a researcher in open science, you need to know what the other scientists think about something. So my talk is going to be intentionally provocative. I would like to hear from you. I would like to hear your questions. And you know that it's my pleasure to be in this framework of the women in science. Particularly, I'm a woman in open science. And you know what happens when women are around science? We want to be witches and provocative people. So I can talk to you with many hats. Ricardo just introduced me as the chair of the Open Science Policy Platform, the European Open Science Policy Platform, which is a stakeholder-driven working group or a stakeholder group that we try to advise the Commission what it is going to be the new agenda for the open science in Europe. The point about this is that we are representing institutions. We are not representing countries. Actually, with the other hat that I can be in this field is with the hat of the research performing organizations. What I'm representing in the Open Science Policy Platform is not Spain, it's not my country, it's not my institution. I'm representing a stakeholder group, particularly the universities, and most particularly the JERUN universities, which are the Young European Research University Network. The network of universities that we are dealing with research intensively, but we are young enough to be under 50 years old. So we are born with the web. Also, I can't talk about my own experience because I'm currently the Deputy Vice President for Research Policies in my university. I'm in charge of a pilot of implementing open science in my university, which is a very difficult thing to do. The normal way to do is that universities, research institutions, they have a mandate, and they suppose that the researchers, moved by some incentives, they try to accomplish that mandate. What I'm trying to do is all the way around. I'm trying to convince the best working groups, the best research teams to be open scientists and convince the others how they improve the impact of the research and how they improve the practices of research just to devote it to the society. So what I'm driving now is a pilot called FOSS, Open Science, which is full open science teams or full open science research groups, that they are the pilot groups that they want to become as a brand of identity, open scientist groups. So this is my own experience. Also, I'm an open science advocate. I said in my Twitter profile that I'm an open science militant. because it's the way that I'm doing. And also I'm related with open science practices because my background is librarianship. I'm an expert in metadata, and we are researching in metadata and how to improve metadata to make the common knowledge more easily available, more feasible, and more on the hands of everybody independently of the infrastructure. And also, I'm a researcher myself. I have to apply for sexenios. I'm a Spanish researcher. I have to behave, and I have to publish in the intended journals. I have to accomplish my ANECA things. So I know what we are talking about in my own skin. So this is what is changing the science. In the 19th century, scientists, they want to find explanations for the phenomenon in order to truly understand nature. But nowadays, we really want to understand something to publish it in Nature, which is a different approach to science. What open science wants is really recover the spirit of the scientist, the spirit of not only a career, but also a target, which is change the quality of the things that we do and change the quality of the world that we live. And that's why I mentioned my talk, Open Science from the Inside Out. Because in one hand, I'm a researcher, so I want to just tell about my own case and my own thinking, and also tell you what is happening out there, because open science, it says that it's a stakeholder and bottom-up movement. I hate to say that open science is a movement. A movement was 15 May in the Puerta del Sol. That's a movement. Open science is an attitude. It's not a movement. It's an attitude, individual and collectively addressing research. But also, I want to say that it's not bottom-up because it has to be top-down. We need policies to frame the practices of research. So that's why I want to play with this idea bottom-up and top-down, and also with the idea inside-out and manage all these things. So my talk is going to be more or less in these parts. The concept, I don't know how much do you know what is open science. Probably you hear about open access. You heard about recently Plan S because it's in the news. You heard about probably citizen science. Do you practice citizen science? How many of you, for example, do you include citizen science practices in your research? Well, you have to do, guys. So that's an interesting approach to open science. Well, what I want to tell you, because I don't want to spend much more time talking to you, I would like to have a discussion. Actually, I get the microphone to walk over there because I want to hear from your questions. It's my privilege to hear you more than you hear me. But I want to explain a bit of the context, why this happened. And I want to break out the misconceptions. Open science is that we have to pay to publish. Oh, what about it? It's not that. It's much more things. And I will tell you also what I think about Plan S, which is a very good thing in one hand, but it will be also something like will be pervasive in the future, and we will change the way where we put the money in, if it is just the whole transversal application of sciences. But we will discuss this about. And also I want to talk about the challenges. What are the challenges of open science? And we will end up probably in the same conclusion, which is the reward system. This is the context. I don't know how much do you know about RRI, Responsible Research and Innovation, which is the main context of open science. This is that's why I think it's so interesting that this talk is included in the Women in Science week, because gender balance and gender equality is one of the hands, or one of the octopus hands, because there are many hands of the responsible research and innovation, but one of them is gender equality. Another one is the public engagement, that in the context of open science, we call it citizen science. We can discuss about what is public engagement, imply the society in your research, and what is citizen science, because there are different layers and different understanding of this. Another hand of this responsible research and innovation is also ethics. What are the new ethics that we need to change the system of research? If everything is open, what are the boundaries of privacy, private information? What are the boundaries about the ethical use of information? What are the boundaries about personal information? What is the role of the GDPR, the regulation of private information? If everything is open, we need a new state of play so we can just maintain the ethical use of research outcomes. And also it's very important because it's something that you do here in this research center, that you really engage society in the research. This is what we call science and education, or education in science. But in this context, which is the general context of research, that every day we have to celebrate weeks like the Women in Science. I would like to don't have the need to celebrate it because it's assumed absolutely by default. And I want also that we don't need this kind of talks because open science is just science, full stop. The quality of research should be also shared with everybody. But the openness is one of the main features of this responsible research and innovation, and also is leading the Human Research Excellence for Research Award. Probably you have heard about this policy, which is that attaching to the institutions the strategy for human resources. And the human resources strategy for research in the Kingdom of the European Union should be addressed by open science, gender balance, science education, governance, ethics, and public engagement, which is what we call the Charter and Code of Conduct of the new research in Europe. So what is open science and why open science? Probably we can have many definitions, but this is one of my favorites, which is the one of the Commissioner Moedas. He's holding on his hand in the Open Science Policy Platform meeting in 2016, the book Open Innovation, Open Science, Open to the World, that we call the triple O of Moedas. He said that and say, bye-bye, I'm the policy maker, open science, open innovation, and open to the world. This is your duty, guys. And this is very easy, but it's what I told you, that sometimes we need these top-down initiatives to address the framework where we have to work. So when he said that, he talked about the open science as a systemic change. This is the core of the thing. It's a systemic change. It's a systemic change in the way we do research, in the modus operandi of science and research. And also, it affects the whole cycle. What you probably you have heard is that open science is open access, open in the best of the approaches. You know also about open research data, okay? Not only opening up the publications, but also opening the research data. Fantastic. But it's not only about the research outcomes. It's also about the whole cycle of research. What about sharing methodologies? What about sharing hypotheses? What about sharing ideas? For example, they are coming up new ways of communication, science, in different steps of the scientific cycle. For example, what is called nano-publications. You publish the ideas, and a connection, linked data connection of nano-publications makes out your own research. This is what open science is about. But in general, it's told that open science is an umbrella term. If you talk to the RI people, the responsible research and innovation, they think that the umbrella term is responsible research and innovation. But in my perspective, open science is not an umbrella, that we can define with this definition of the OECD. That is, what you have the research more widely accessible in the digital format, which is another feature of the open science, to the scientific community, but also to the society. Okay, so I just transform the umbrella in my own interpretation of open science, which is biologically incorrect, by the way, because the mushrooms, they don't have roots, but I need roots, you know? So I say, I need something which is an umbrella term, which is open science. Also, I choose the mushroom because we have a parallel layer, which is citizen science, which is becoming crossly with open science, and also we need roots. And for me, the responsible research and innovation is the soil where the open science grows. That's why I'm very happy that human research strategy is addressing these principles, this soil or this land where they have to grow the new science. So the most important thing about this umbrella or mushroom term is not the terms that includes, which is open access, that you know, open access to publications, okay? Open data and open research data, that we can have a discussion that we studied before the conference. What is public sector information data, or what is research data, or what is the difference between research data from research or research data for research, okay? Because you can use open data and make your own research out of this data that they are already published and they are already public, okay? But also you have the commitment with the new approach to open science to publish again the data that you create as a result of your research. So this is a big confusion on open data, open research data, and also the technology behind that allows to connect all this data, which is link open data. For example, we can think about this, try to think about your own research and put it all these keywords, open research, open scientific workflows, open methodologies, open peer review, collaborative science, co-creation, all these keywords, if you can apply them to your own research, okay? Because this is the kingdom of the open science. But also what is more important for me is what I said, that's why I had to do a mushroom biological incorrect, because we need roots. And the roots is the research integrity system, what we mentioned before. Also the research infrastructures. We cannot make science available if we don't have enough infrastructures. Then I would like to discuss if we have the right infrastructures to address this openness. But also we need a new rewarding system, which is the core business of open science, or the main barrier to open science that we have, which is the reward system and incentives. Actually, in the Open Science Policy Platform, we are working in addressing new indicators to measure the level of openness, or to measure scientists in the kingdom of open science. I will tell you that this is not very easy. And also, if we think about the research and research infrastructures and the connection with these research infrastructures to make open science happen, we need to have a system of standards and a system of governance. We cannot do our own science on our own. We need to interoperate among different disciplines, and this is where it is really creative in the transversal approach of science. This is the other thing that I told you. It's not only about open research data, open access, open publications, open methodologies, open different parts of the cycle of research. It's also about opening as soon as possible. And it's not only opening because we are all holding up our research until we have an outcome, which is called paper. But the science of papers is pre-technological. We keep doing science as an outcome, as a unique outcome, like when we didn't have technologies or digital technologies. That's why I say it's pre-technological approach to science. The idea is that you can support the reproducibility of your research from the very beginning, sharing not only the results and holding up the results until you have the paper, but sharing as soon as you can. I think the openness is a source of inspiration Because the later you open your research, the later you realize your mistakes. This is my particular experience. Would you want to share my research outputs are a metadata model, which is not an amazing formula, it is nothing amazing. But sometimes when you publish your ontology or when you publish your whatever, you want to publish it perfect. And you hold up your research until it is perfect for publishing. The idea is not hold your research until it is perfect for publishing, but is sharing so you get the input of the other researchers before you can publish it in a normal or regular way. So that's why we will understand that the problem is not only the outcome that has to be open, is the attitude of the researcher that has to be opened. And base the advance of science in the generosity and in the kindness of science is not designed in the current system. Because in the current system, the competition is about the outcomes. It's not about the ideas. But think about this, because the ideas is what they address the funding system. We are not funded for results. We are funded for ideas. If you get an ERC grant, it's because you have a disruptive idea in your field, but you don't have the result. So why we don't apply this to the whole research system, not only to the grant system? Not only applying the idea system for the grant, but applying the idea system for the sharing of the knowledge. But in this, we can think about the open science challenges, which is what we call also the open science pillars in Europe, that they are 8. And we know that they are the main points where we are working now in Europe. One is fair data and EOSC, which is the infrastructure and the methodology and the standardization mechanisms to address the infrastructure for the research data. Think about the EOSC, the Europe. How many of you have heard about EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud? Nobody? 1, 2? Okay, welcome. The European Open Science Cloud is an infrastructure that was actually, the portal was launched on the 23rd of November last year, but it's supposed that it's a connecting system for all the research data in Europe. Okay? We will talk about this a bit more when we talk about the infrastructures and when we talk about the things that they are possible. But this is one of the pillars that we are working on that, the infrastructures to make it possible to share the data. And fair data is the approach on how we have to share those data, that is, make them findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. FAIR is the best acronym ever, because everybody wants to say, my science is fair, my data are fair, which is, very nice way of qualifying your research. My research is fair. But in terms of technical issues, means that your research is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And this is not just a happy acronym. It's very difficult to address this in the kingdom of transversal approaches to sciences. Another one of the challenges that the European Commission has is what we call the future of scholarly communication. That is what I told you before. What are we going to communicate in 10 years' time? The paper is the unit of science, but they could be a different future ways of publishing, future ways of scholarly communication. They are more effective than the paper after 2 years of research. This is what I told you, for example, about nano-publications, research data sets, publications of hypotheses, publications of protocols that they are digitally available before you finish your own research. And of course, the key issue, which is the next generation metrics, what we call new indicators. What are we going to be measured? You know that there is a big movement that is addressed in at least 3 declarations, the Leiden Manifesto, the DORA Declaration, and also the approach of the publishers to the impact, I don't remember exactly the name, but it's also a declaration for the publishers that sometimes even the publishers are against the impact factor. The impact factor is the cancer of science. I told you that I want to be provocative, okay? The impact factor is the cancer of science, but it's something that we all accepted. But we cannot blame the researchers to publish in high impact factor publications because we don't give them an alternative. So that's why we are strongly working in the next generation indicators, that they are indicators that they are compliant with the new ways to addressing science in the digital world, which is not the pre-technological asset, which is the paper, which is a pre-technological the main result. And the rewards and incentives. What are the rewards and incentives that the researchers have to become open scientists? I will tell you afterwards one of my favorite slides, which is what I call the motivators of will. The motivators of will of researchers. There are three. One is money, another one is the regulation, the law, and the other one is ranking. The impact factor is a ranking. We do things. Plan S is an implementation plan of open science, or not of open access, more than open science, I will tell you, and I will discuss this afterwards. Plan S is an implementation plan for the new ways of publishing in an open access world, but it's not the perfect thing. It's not the perfect thing. We need new rewards and new incentives to get the thing done. It's not only that the funder is going to pay for the publication. It's that the funder cannot pay for something that has already paid the institution. We cannot do what we call double dipping, paying for publishing and paying for reading. It's where we put the money. And also, the publication system is based on what I told you, a pre-technological approach. You give the publisher the paper in electronic format, following the rules for publishing. And everything is already done. Then the peer review, the quality system, is based in a no-paid review system that we do for fun or because we like to. I think it's a privilege to be an evaluator of a paper, you know, but it's why we do it. But we don't have any money. So when I'm doing a peer review work in my office, the Universidad Carlos III is paying for the light and the computer I'm consuming. So my institution is paying twice, paying for accessing, paying for reviewing, and then we want them to pay for publishing. This is crazy. It's absolutely crazy system, and it's not going to be maintainable, sustainable in the very near future. Also, the other pillars are research integrity, education and skills, open education and skills in open science, because we cannot ask you, young researchers, you have to be an open scientist. And you say, why? How? What can I do? What have I to do? You need to have the skills to become an open scientist in an ethical and good way. And also citizen science, which is the other pillar, which includes what I call the particularly or the extreme motivation of science, which is a citizen that has a problem. If you have a problem, a health problem, for example, a patient is a citizen scientist with an extreme motivation. These guys, they can be very good actors in your research because they give you the questions that you don't have the answer for. You have the questions to address a paper. You don't have the questions that the person who has the problem has. And this is going to be treated in a transversal way. Okay? So I'm representing here the universities and research performing organization. And my deal as a stakeholder group is how to address all these challenges, all these pillars, for the perspective of a stakeholder group. But also you can say, well, the publishers, they probably have something to do. They probably have something to address research data, the infrastructures for research, the ways of new publications, the research indicators, the reward system. In different layers, we all have, all the stakeholders here in this side of the slide, we have something to do to make this happen, okay? So, and also, here you are, the researchers and the policy-making organizations, that they are more transversal than the others because the universities and the RPOs, they are plenty of researchers. And sometimes the policy-making organizations are also funding organizations, which is what happened with the Commission. It's what I call the golden rule of science, or the golden rule of open science. What is the golden rule? Who has the goal puts the rule, which is what happened. You have the money. This is the framework program. This is Horizon Europe. And I put the rules. And I will say to you, you guys, in Horizon Europe, one of the pillars is going to be open science. If you want the money, you have to accomplish this approach. But for that, we have to provide with infrastructures, we have to provide with a new reward system, and we have to provide also a new education and a skill system, because the researchers, they have to do research, perform research, not to learn the nice way to do it, which is absolutely a systematic change with the previous way to do research. This is another very important thing that is in the context. Commissioner Moedas, that has been one of the main forces of this open science thing. He mentioned in April 2 key points. That is, if we have to reduce the 8 pillars, this is like the Christian mandatory things. All the 10 have to be addressed in 2 or something like that. I don't remember how it worked, but it's the same thing. If you have to make a simplification of open science, you will say open data and open publications, okay? But of course, on the whole layers and on the whole umbrella term and on the whole problems that we have to address. But one is that open research data are going to be considered public sector information. Public sector information is a directive of the European Commission that is what has addressed all the performance of open data. You have seen open data .gov.eu, open data in Spain is datos.gov.es, Spain. All these servers of public sector information data. That by law, they have to be officially available in interoperable formats. That would be the most desirable way to have them. But actually, it is the layer of transparency. For example, to publish the salary of the public servants. To publish the salary of the public servants in a PDF is just transparency. To publish the public servant's salary of the whole Europe in RDF or in linked open data formats allows us to convert this public sector information in research data. But from this year, before I think before the end of the first 3 months period, it has to be published, the new public sector information directive that will include the research data as a public good. So all the research data that they are produced with public money should be publicly available. Then we can discuss about how, where, which are the technologies, how many, who is going to hold them, who has the responsibility of storage, who has the responsibility of managing, who has the responsibility of making a plan out of this. And the other key issue is that open access has the role of a very important role in the open science system, which is the way that the member states have to recommend to address the publication systems. And that's why Plan S came up. Different national or different institutional and national funders that they came up with this idea of open access. In May 2018, the Commissioner presented these recommendations, which is the prioritized recommendations for the 8 ambitions of open science. What one of the recommendations that we did to the Commission is immediate open access. Immediate open access means without embargo period. If you have data coming out of your research, they have to be published as soon as possible. If you have a publication published out of your work, they have to be published as soon as you can. Okay? So, and this is why Plan S also came in the scene of open science, and is what I say that Plan S become open science, again, equal to open access. For me, it's a bit disappointing, I have to tell you, because we have been working in open access from the last 15 years. Now we have been working in a bigger concept, more related with responsible research and innovation, new integrity, and new things and new ways, and a systemic change of open science, which is a more challenging concept. And then it comes the Plan S comes out of the in the news, and again we are in the same statement of open science as 15 years ago. But it's good, because it's the first time we have an implementation plan. This is why we have to be open scientists. This is a very critical reason. Give me my data. No, my data are mine, because I'm doing this wonderful research, and I keep my data because I want to patent. And you say, okay, but give me my taxes back, because your data are produced with public money. This is one of the main principles for Nelly Cruz, who was one of the commissioners before this movement started. And also, we have many reasons to justify open science. But let me say that the most important one is the reproducibility, which is one of the main principles of science. If you keep, as soon as you open your research data, for example, as soon as you keep your methodologies open, as soon as you keep your research more openly available, you promote collaboration, you promote long-term access, you promote preservation of your research too. But what you promote is the reproducibility of the science. But also, we can ask why to do open science, not why in the context of why it's good. We all agree that it's good to share the knowledge. But when I have to say the why in a personal basis, as an individual scientist, or as an individual policymaker in a university, or as an individual research performing organization, or even as an individual leader of a research team, where they have the responsibility to lead the funding, to lead the results, to lead the performance of my researchers, how can I say why to be an open scientist? And the questions could be, how can I incentivize the systemic change? How does it affect our researchers? Promotion, research assessment. If we don't have clarified how are they going to be evaluated, we cannot promote it. So we have to balance these questions and why we want to do. And also, you have to ask yourself if you have to wonder if you have the infrastructure need. You have the virtual research environment to address an open science context. Perhaps you can afford it. You want the money to do something else in your own research more than in the infrastructure. Who is the responsible of the infrastructure? Then how can we have our researchers skilled in these new practices? Who's going to give them the training? Who's going to give them the big confidence on the new system to address the research in this new way? And also the new scientific behavior, how you will address this in a research integrity new environment. And of course, you have to be always compelled, but the idea, if you are working in a public institution, you always want to be transparent. This is the word that we like. We do it. We do like the transparency when we are working in public institutions. But this is the scenario for the challenge. This is the scenario. I don't know if you know about Sci-Hub. Who knows about Sci-Hub? Oh, well, I have to take a picture of you. Who knows about EOSC? Who knows about Sci-Hub? Everybody. Congratulations. And I cannot say this because they are recording me. I will never incentivize to use Sci-Hub. But I will just invite you to analyze the meaning of Sci-Hub in science. One is absolutely simple. It's much simple than going to the library and click 1 million links. And excuse me, I'm a librarian myself. I will not tell you this ever, okay? And it's illegal. But who cares if you are in your own office and it's illegal, but you know, it's like Robin Hood. He was a thief, you know? But he was a thief that got the money to give it to the poor people. You know, he's not going to be in jail. It's the same thing. It is illegal. It is a thief of knowledge. Because the Elsevier and the big publishers, they have, because we give them the opportunity to have it, which is something that we will comment on the Plan S afterwards if you want, because they have the priority of our copyright. So we give them the money. We give them the copyright so they can get the money. So it's illegal. Officially, it's illegal, Sci-Hub. But it's a big demonstration of the scientist behavior that we don't agree with the way the publishers manage our information. It's the most clear evidence, the most clear performance on how researchers we think that we have, first, to access information, and second, the way that we think that we have to get the information from, which is without paywalls. If you are in a public university, it's very funny because I remember once a researcher in my university, he said, no, but I go to Google Scholar and I get everything. And I say, yes, because the university library pays, I don't remember, but close to 500,000 euros. So when you go to Google Scholar, you have click, and you get the paper. It's not cheap. It's not free. It's not free at all. So the point is that sometimes we are not conscious what is the path between open access and open science. But the Sci-Hub explanation is very, very, very eloquent because it demonstrates that we are unsatisfied with the way we access the information. But this is a fantastic slide that it was in the Pasteur for Open Access, which was a project dealing with open access in Europe. And the guy who was there was indexing by drawing. And this was on the conversation. And the guy was not an open scientist and an open science person, but it was what he took. It's like a picture of what we were discussing. We were discussing about the big deals and the APCs. You know what they are, the APCs, the author processing charges. It's the money that we pay to the publisher after we have paid to access, we pay to the publisher to put in open access our papers. And this is what we call hybrid open access. There are many ways of open access. The one that Plan S tries to promote is gold open access, that we can discuss about. I'm not very much fan of gold open access, only gold, because we changed the back of the money. We put it the back and the money in Elsevier, and now we will put the back of the money in Frontiers and F1000 and Hidawi and all these new publishers. It's different. Of course, I prefer this address than the previous one, but it's not perfect. But also there is a hybrid open access, which is that we publish in the close under paywalls, but then we make our paper available by paying. It's something like paying, you know. It's like prostitution of knowledge. I told you that I would like to be provocative. The challenges are also the building blocks of open science. This is crucial, and this is crazy, because we want to change the system, but, you know, every change is an effort. You go from your house to a palace, but you have to do the moving. Always you have to do the effort, okay? But we are not having the time, having the confidence to make the effort of creating new incentives, on developing new infrastructures, and also to embed science in the society, which is the citizen science and the public engagement. These challenges are many, but the main one is the cultural change. Is what I say, darling, we need to talk. When you are in trouble with your partner and he says to you, darling, we need to talk, you know that something is going to change, okay? So we are in this period. Is what I say to my colleagues of the stakeholder groups. Darling, we need to talk. We need to talk because we know this is going to change. This is going to change. It's not point to go a step backwards, but how? How? How we are going to address? Who will get the DVDs and who will be in charge of the kids? We know that is something is going to split, but the point is how we are going to manage the whole splitting process that implies open science. Another crucial challenge is education, is what I said to you before, that we need to train early career researchers, but also senior researchers. I have a joke in my own institution that we teach a transversal course at the PhD students, and they got a credit, okay? If it's something like a course on how to be an open scientist, how to open your publications, how to have more impact in your publications with metrics, how you can communicate, how you can manage your ORCID profile, these kind of things that they are practical things of courses. But I say, you get a credit if you come to the course, but you get 2 credits if your IP comes along. Because what happened in general is that the early career researchers, they are very willing to practice. I had an experience, I organized in 2015 a course on the Foster project, which is a training in open science project. And I invite all these early career researchers, and they have to write a post, an open post, about what is their thinking or their approach about open science. And all of them, they agree upon the thing, and they say, well, but then I go to my lab, and the head of the lab tell me, no, these are stupid things, you are going to do them when you are tenure. Now you have to publish in Q1, and then you will make a blog if you want to. So that's the point. At the end, they have to follow the rules of the big labs or the big high-quality impact factors journals, and it's also that the mechanism of basing their career. So that's why sometimes I think the senior people needs to know also about open science. Also, it's a question of attitude. I told you at the beginning that the open science is not a concept, it's not a movement, it's an attitude. And the attitude is what I say CC, which is Creative Commons, the licensing on openness, but it's conviction and confidence. You have to demonstrate the capability of open knowledge. What I'm working now with the pilot of my university, my own policy, is that working on demonstrating that when you are an open scientist, you have a bigger impact, not only in your peers, but also in the society. You become a more visible scientist. What we want our research to be. We want to be tenure, we want to be famous, or we want to change the world. That's the point. What is the thing? And at the end is that the way we behave is because we want to be tenure. And we cannot have this discussion. Would you like to be an open scientist or would you like to be tenure? I want to be tenure, excuse me. If I want to apply to be a full professor, I have to publish in impact factor journals. If I want to apply to be, I have to follow the path. So the attitude of demonstrating that open knowledge is cool is a very important thing. And also the alignment with other policies in the institution. If you are dealing with a research institution, you cannot come up and have, this is the open science and grows like a mushroom here. No, the mushroom has to grow in the whole strategic planning of the whole institution. So if we are capable to do this, the easy thing, it will be to make the open science policy, which is what the institution usually do. They do the policy, and then they try to apply the practice. And I think it's much better to address the practice, and then you have to induce the policy. But this is managing a complex change. I don't know if you know about this slide that I'm very fan of, about how to deal with complex change. Open science paradigm is a very big challenge. It's a very big challenge and a very big change. If you want to address the change in the whole performance, you need a vision, which is something that I'm giving to you today. You need skills, because it's not easy to do it if you don't skill people to do it. You need incentives. You need resources, and you need an action plan. This is what you need to make open science happen. Because if you don't have incentives, you will have resistance of researchers. If you don't have an action plan, you will start in false. If you don't have an action plan to make the implementation, that would be a very failed start of the policy. If you don't have a vision, you will generate confusion. So the researchers are not clearly, they don't have a clear incentive, the overview incentive of the institution to make an open science practice in the whole thing. So, and if you don't give the skills, you just create an anxiety climb, which is very, very bad for making a change happen. And this is my favorite slide that I told you, that is the motivators of will, that they are money, law, and ranking. But also there is a big one, which is what I call the motivator of seduction. I was just asking to Ricardo before when we were walking to here, do you remember, and I ask you guys too, do you remember when you changed to search in internet in Alta Vista and you start searching in Google? Somebody tells you, you have to search in Google today. No, you did by seduction. Why? Because Google was better. That's where we want open science by seduction. But open science by seduction, in the terms with the head of the researcher, which is the one that you have here, with the head of the researcher, you have to make it very easy. I want to do my research, okay? So to make an open scientist, it has not to be another work. I do my research, and I have to have the support that this is going to be very easy. Also, you have to motivate people. And also, you have to help them, because I cannot oblige my researchers to become open scientists if this is a burden. So the seduction is a mix of infrastructure, of help, and support. If not, it's not going to happen. That's why I say that the EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud, has to have the WhatsApp effect. Do you know what is the WhatsApp effect? Think about it in any technology that you use. Why you use WhatsApp? Have you asked yourself about this? No, you just do it. Because it's cheap, it's free, which is very important, because it's terribly useful, and because it's terribly mainstream, you know? So if you cannot make an infrastructure like WhatsApp, nobody's going to use it. My concern about the EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud, is that we are going to put there 600 million, and we don't know if it's going to be adopted by seduction. We need to make open science by seduction. But let me tell you about the implementation. One of the main things that we have to bear in mind for implementing open science is what I said to you, infrastructures. Who's going to pay these infrastructures? Who's going to pay at the European level? That's fine. But also who's going to pay at the international level? I want my students to apply for a Fulbright, not only be researchers in Europe. I want my students to go to China, to Singapore. The system has to be global. So we cannot make a vertical infrastructure that only addresses European research. And we open that infrastructure for the whole world. So we have to be very conscious about this. We need policies, but not only European policies. We need also member states' policies. One of my big commitments now that I'm chairing the Open Science Policy Platform is to put the stakeholders, that they are the groups of the open science policy platform, along with the member states. Because many times you cannot implement open science because you have a restriction in the terms of your policy in your member states. For example, in JERU, in the Young European Research University Network, we are 18 universities for 12 countries. So now when I'm dealing with the practical commitments for implementation of open science, I ask them, can we commit the young universities to change the way we have the measuring, the indicators that we are going to measure, blah, blah, blah. And they say no, because in Germany we don't do this. No, because in my country we have to go to a transversal layer, which is called an ECA, that has the criteria. You cannot apply at university level criteria that they don't depend on you. So what is the policies has to be a member state, a European state, and also internationally. Because again, if open science is not the by default situation, it's not going to happen. And it's not an invention of Europe. It is also addressed in Australia, it's also addressed in the US. I was last year invited for the Conference of Ministries of Latin America to address the open science performance also in Latin American countries. It has to be an international thing. And also, it has to have what I call PCIs. PCIs is the way that I try to convince the stakeholders, the policy platform, and also the Commission. I was 2 weeks ago with the Director General, the new Director General of RTD, and I told him we have to work on the Horizon Europe, not imposing open science. If it is one of the pillars, the pillar of excellence is going to be called open science. Fantastic. I love it, and I think excellence has to be a synonym of openness, because if you are excellent, you don't care about being open. If you don't have nothing to hide, you have to be open. Fantastic. But we need practical commitments for implementation. And this is my main contribution to the work that we have to do as individuals, researchers, as in institutions. This is the infrastructures that we need, which is one of the big points of the make open science happen, infrastructures. How many of you know open air? More than EOSC, but less than Sci-Hub. This is recorded, right? More than EOSC, but less than Sci-Hub. This is the reality, okay? So open air is the aggregator. It's something that we call technically a service provider, because it aggregates all the open access publications in Europe. But when you say, look for this paper, when you say, look on internet, everybody puts google.com, right? Look on internet, altavista.com, and one day you say google.com. When you say, look for this paper, what do you put? Sci-Hub, not open air. Or you put something like it's an aggregator of publications, but it's easy. It has to be very easy. And this in the kingdom of the publication is what we have, the policies for publications. The Plan S is the first, I mentioned the other day, and I have one of the slides at the end. It doesn't matter if we don't go through the whole slides. I want to discuss with you guys. This is the first practical commitment for implementation of open access in the last 15 years. The Declaration of Berlin, which is with the open access movement started, is 15 years ago. But in the last 15 years, this is the first practical commitment for implementation. A practical commitment for implementation means something that you really commit and that you can do. When I say, what is a practical commitment for implementation? I say, this is something that you, with your power, with your shoes, in your institution, with the money that you have, you can do it, okay? So that's why I'm talking about, we are changing the mode from the declaration mode, Berlin Declaration, DORA Declaration against the impact factor, this manifesto, the Hague Manifesto of text and data mining for research, the other manifesto, the other declaration, the other recommendation, more recommendations. We have 1 million recommendations. Who is going to address these recommendations? In this case, the Plan S is the first commitment of the funders. I am the funder. I'm the funder. Imagine that I am the European Commission, or I am the Wellcome Trust, for example. Wellcome Trust, which is one of the funders that they have adopted this Plan S. And I say, if you want my money, the golden rule, remember? If you want my money, you have to do it in open access. That's it. It's just an agreement. It's something that I can do because I have the money. I cannot change your tenure track values. I cannot change the integrity that you have in your university. I can change what I can because I'm a funder. And I can change your attitude, motivating, the motivator of will, remember? The motivator of will, which is the way that you get money for. So if you want my money, you have to address this. It's very practical. It's the first real practical commitment for implementation. This is my positive evaluation about the Coalition S, which is the funders that they started to address. And also, they are getting more and more funders. And also the Plan S, I was the other day in Science Europe presentation in Brussels. You know, the Science Europe is the institution that gathers all the funders in Europe. And those are the guys who try to address the Plan S with the advisor, Robert Jan Smith, that was the previous Director General of Research of the European Commission. You have this guy who has the charismatic approach, which is important because it's a political side. He's an advisor of the Commission. He's an advisor at the Juncker level. And you have these practical people, the Science Europe, that they can get in touch easily with the funders. What happened that the president of Science Europe told me that they come to the new director of the agency in Spain, and they say, well, we think that is a very good idea, but we don't know if we are prepared. That's why I told you again, the practical commitments for implementation, they are always committed by your national policies, by your attitudes, and by your institutional incentives. If Spain is not addressing Plan S, we cannot apply Plan S. It's a question that happens at a funding agency level, okay? But let's go through the whole principles, so we review it. I don't know if you know the principles. I just put it in a very brief way because I want to discuss, and I'm running out of time. But those are the principles. I don't know if you know them, if you have discussed them. The principles were addressed in September, and now the last week on Friday was the last day to make comments to the implementation plan. So Plan S was issued in September. Then they have an implementation plan in November that I don't know, but it was in the Congress of Spain. It was discussed for a group of Podemos has a proposition, not of law, a proposition that I don't know what happened after that, but it was in discussion, but we didn't know in Spain in general. And then in this discussion of implementation, we have a time to give our comments. So last Friday, we submitted our comments as Jerun, and we were the 2,240-something. So 2,000 people submitted comments to the implementation plan because it's not easy to implement it, okay? You have in red the main things: maintain the quality, maintain the copyright, which is a very important thing because we give the copyright to the publishers, and also align the policies and repositories, and also very important thing that is the hybrid open access is not going to be funded. I mean, you cannot publish in an Elsevier journal that your institution pays for accessing and then pay again for release the open access version, okay? That's not going to be funded. But that has a lot of discussion things. In Spain last week, we have this, we want to analyze it. There is no clear about the politicians. Last week I heard about the María de Maeztu and Severo Ochoa centers are going to address a call to the ministry to give them asking them more leadership in Spain on these topics. This is the infrastructure of data. This is my particular view of how the research data are. They are very big vertical data silos that you can have the physics, the life science, earth science, the big infrastructures that they deal with the research data in silos. And also there is a big long tail of science, which is all these data that we produce in little universities, in little research institutions, that we are not belonging to the big, big infrastructures, the big ESFRIs or the big ERICs in Europe. So how are we going to address this scientific landscape for research data? And also what happened with the publications, we can have OpenAIR, which is an aggregator of publications, because all the publications have more or less the same features. The data that you manage as, in physics, they are not the data that we manage in social science and humanities. They don't have any common thing. So how you can address a one-shop, like the commissioner wants to say, a one-shop point for every single research data in Europe is really, really challenging. And also the long tail of science, that is a mix of everything. Those are, for me, the features that it has to have the European Open Science Cloud, which is going to be an infrastructure to address fair data, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. But also, I need two more R's that are reproducible and reliable. In the time of fake news, we need reliable science. We need the data to support reliability, not only findability or not only accessibility. We need those data to be reliable. Who is going to be in charge of the reliability of data? We have more or less a mechanism to guarantee the quality of publications that we can discuss about peer review for years, okay? But who is going to guarantee the reliability and the reproducibility of science? Of course, the policies that we have, the publications was a policy in the 7 Framework Program, but from the beginning of 2017, we have this mandatory policy of deposit research data in a trustworthy repository of data. We have to discuss about what is a trustworthy repository of data. And also we have to keep having the publications. We are in this context, which is what I call the rep and rec mode, which is reports and recommendations mode. We have plenty of reports. Those are the reports that have been appearing, turning fair data into reality, prompting the EU scheme practice, the future of scholarly publication that was issued the final version last week, and the indicators framework, which is going to be issued in the next couple of weeks, because we are now in the review. This has 32, 27, 26, 13 recommendations to make open science happen. That's why I tell you that this is what we have, and this is what we have to have, a real open science in practice, where you can have a high citation rate, because your publication is openly available, where you have to get the public can access to your fundings, the public can interact with your research. What is the practical commitment for implementation that we can address? And this is what I say to you, that is, what can you do in a particular personal basis for open science? And let me give you some examples. One is example of the funders, what I told you before. This is the first commitment for implementation. But let me tell you one that I love it. He's a researcher, and he said in Twitter that I don't know if Plan S is going to be issued in Spain, it's going to be accepted in my institution. I don't care. What I will do is adopt it, Plan S, in a personal basis, like a researcher. This is a clear, practical commitment for implementation. Me, as a researcher, what can I do? Of course, I can tell you what we do in our university policy, that we want to address these new challenges. But my last slide, and this is what I want to discuss with you, and you guys, what are you going to do? What is your plan? Do you have any approach to the practical implementation of open science with your shoes, with your money in your institution? Thank you very much. That's my message. Perhaps?
Thank you very much, Eva, for this very nice, interesting talk. Now we have some time for questions. I think there will be some of them.
I want to just...
Yeah. While you think about the questions, let me also say that I forgot to mention something in a tradition that starts to be standard in this week, which is that this talk, as I mentioned, is programmed in the International Week of Women in Science, which is organized by 4 research centers. So Donostia International Physics Centers, Materials Physics Centers, Materials Physics Center, nanoGUNE, and biomaGUNE. Just that. Now you have the time to think about your questions. Now it's your turn. Yes?
You need the microphone because we are recording. Oh.
Everything is very nice.
But they have...
Open access, but you always behind is that we had to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use the free repositories like Archive or some others,
mm-hmm.
but you don't take this example as the guiding rule. In areas of science, Archive, which is free,
mm-hmm.
is well respected and is the most cited work in the area,
mm-hmm.
and it's free.
Well,
So the way you put this is that we are going to found all these Elsevier and all these big companies
mm-hmm.
for free.
I'm very happy that you addressed this question because it was exactly the message that I don't want to transmit. Okay? Okay, but no. One thing is that you are right. Archive is free, but I have to correct you. Somebody pays for Archive. There is nothing that is completely free. Okay? That is the attitude of the physics. It's fantastic. It's one of the examples disciplines that you have this kind of attitude in general to share it. Plan S is another. There are different roads. We call officially roads. Archive is the green road. It's called green road. That means that you have the opportunity to deposit your work. But there are disciplines that they don't have that opportunity. So the point is that the science is addressed in a basis of papers. You know, I would love to, if you ask Eva Méndez, which kind of model do you think is going to be the mode of open science in the future? I would say archive mode. And also is what some of the publishers, for example, F1000 has this publication mode. You publish, and then you have the open peer review too, which is, for me, something fantastic. But what happened with Plan S is what the funders can do. The funders cannot convince every single researcher in the world to publish in archive mode. They can commit them to publish in an open access journal, which is the other road, gold road. Yeah, go ahead, just discuss.
Okay, I mean, that's fine, but can the funders force me to publish in an open journal? I mean, to pay for that? Because but what I do usually is that I publish all the things in archive and then submit to some society, mm-hmm. which is free. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's free to publish, but it's blocked, but you have the archive version. Mm-hmm. So the funders of the European Union are going to force me to spend my money in open access journal?
No, actually...
That's the thing I hear.
Actually, what Plan S was at the beginning was exactly that. And it was the discussion that we say that is going to happen. And I'm really, when it was issued, I say, well, now we are complaining about Elsevier, and in 5 years' time, we are going to be complaining about Frontiers or someone else. The thing is where you put the money, before or after. It's better because you put it after. The point is that we cannot make sustainable the transition system from the closed science, which is Elsevier and all these people, with the open offset system, which is paying for, instead of paying for accessing, paying for publishing. Okay? There is an intermediate point, which is what you said. That is what I will really try to support, which is the green road, that creates a mechanism of legitimizing the free publication, as we believe that is legitimize the underpaying world's system, because we believe in the impact factor. The funny thing is that you look at worse, and the thing is that you believe the impact factor. Why we can no believe? This is what they are now studying about mechanisms of blockchains apply to the review and the trust system. Because at the end, it's a question of quality is based on trust. Why you trust the reviewers and why you trust in archive. And my discipline doesn't trust on that. How do you build up a trust system? And I think the key is the researchers. They are the more powerful thing. It's what I said to you. You have take your question was a declaration of your PCI. It's your practical commitment for implementation. I cannot blame you if I'm the funder and you tell me that you are publishing in open access. That's it. Was one of our comments. I think what I told you of these implementation rules that they were published at the end of November, we addressed comments, all the constituencies, the learner societies, the universities, everybody was complaining about that. Open air, the infrastructures, everybody. And one of the things that we say, we have invested a lot in repositories, because archive is free for the researcher, but it's an infrastructure that you have to maintain. My university, your university, the University of the Basque Country has a repository. There are millions of repositories that we maintain with the money of the university, with the resources, with the staff of the university. We cannot kill those green road. We have to support also the trust system on the quality about this publication for free. But the thing is that it's a big discussion. Open doesn't mean free. And free doesn't mean, I would love to, but open is not only free. It's the same thing about the open source initiative. But I do really support your initiative, and congratulations, because it's your PCI. I will take a picture of you, and I will put it in my next slides. I will say, no, it's your practical commitment for implementation. I will do that. And if you get money for research, in my grant, I said to you that you have to publish in open access, you do it. That's it, full stop. It's what we want to do. It's not that you oblige me to publish in an open access journal, gold open access. Because there is another question that I have for you. When they say that they are going to make a cap on the APCs, on the author processing charge, is it with the money that you pay to make your paper available online? What do you think is a reasonable APC? I have my own answer. Eh? But how much are you willing to pay? Okay, between 5 and 50. I buy that one. I will use it also. More? What do you think is a reasonable APC? Because it's not that you give the paper in electronic format and they pass it to a guy with a stone and they convert your paper, in a stone base, carving the stone. No, it's that you give the paper, they evaluate it for free, and they put it. Excuse me. This is author processing charge. Of course, it's not free, and somebody has to pay it. But what would you think it would be a reasonable APC that you are willing to pay? 550, I think is good. How much? How much do you pay in your field in general when you have to buy hybrid? Because, well, how many of you published in gold open access? I mean, just paying for publishing, and in the first minute it's available. You do it in Frontiers, 2,000. 3,000. The average among disciplines in Europe is 1,800 is the average. That includes disciplines like you, 3,000, but also includes other disciplines that they are cheaper. How much will you pay? Or what do we want to say?
Yep.
So I ask this question to myself, to you. wouldn't it be better for the European Union to have a regulation on these prices?
Wonderful that you say that. It's the brilliant idea
also
of the head of the unit. He said,
open access if you have money. So again, you are you have privileged people or not?
It's a very good idea, and it's also one of the ideas of one of the heads of the unit, that he said that if we manage to regulate the prices of telcos, why we cannot manage to regulate the prices of the publications. But then one of the discussions that there is under the implementation of Plan S is analyze seriously what is reasonable APCs, because they put a cap in a reasonable APC. Okay, what is a reasonable APC? Who's going to deal with this regulation? At the end, the regulation is the whole system. If all the researchers we are against paying, it's going to change. Actually, they are recording me, but actually, Elsevier has a plan to survive after the model of subscription mode. The subscription mode is pre-technological, but they are not going to kill the golden chicken. Why? The golden egg chicken, because they want to maintain the business. But they have absolutely thought the mechanism to maintain it in a new world. But who is going to regulate that? That is going to take a lot of time. It has to go to the Parliament in the European level. And also, if we regulated the prices at European level, the publishers will try to be in another countries. So the system of regulation has to be global, not only at European level, because science is global and has to be global. It's not like the telcos in the telecommunication company in Italy or in Spain. It's that the production of knowledge in China or in the US or in Australia. But this is one of the things that is on top of the table. It's fantastic. Would you like me to tell you what I think is a reasonable APC? For me, a reasonable APC is something that can pay an early career researcher, a PhD student, from his pocket. I will not say that I will decide to have a coffee or to have a paper. No, I put my own example. When I was doing my PhD, the salary of early career research as a PhD student, I was saving money to buy a new jacket, leather jacket. Okay? I want to be capable to define the early charging processing charge on the way that an early career researcher can decide with his money, something like, let's see, 300, 500 euros. You cannot pay it every month, but you can save your money and take your own decision. Because if not, your decision is not free. Because you know what is the most sensitive part of the human body? The pocket. The human being moves for the pocket. And if you have this possibility, I will do it myself. I save money to when I was doing my PhD to buy a new jacket, I will save money to make an APC. This is very reasonable. Very reasonable. But nobody, as an early career researcher, can save 3,000 euros. It's not reasonable. And nobody, you are in a overfunded discipline, which is fantastic. Congratulations, because you have big grants. But there are other disciplines that they are belonging to this long tail of science that they don't have money to pay that. And also, if I apply for an ERC, I want to have 40,000 euros on given another research position instead of paying for APCs. If it is not reasonable, I have to spend. The answer is not that the commission or the funder is going to pay. No, the answer is what I want to do with that money if I have options. Okay? So what else? More comments? Questions? I think you need the microphone because it's recording.
As we said, our performance as scientists depends on these private publishing companies. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of initiatives for us to implement open science, open data, and so on. Are there initiatives so that they can change their, attitude to science? at the level of European Union, because I think the feeling sometimes we have scientists is that the only one that we have to work is us.
Yes, yes, I agree with you.
More data, more work, and they can keep
I agree with you.
taking advantage of the golden egg chicken. So
yes,
it would be nice to know if there are initiatives so that balance a bit.
There are initiatives about the publishers. Actually, in the Open Science Policy Platform, they are also represented as, stakeholders, publishers. It would be very naive put them apart. Actually, in this high-level expert group of the future of scholarly publication, it was Elsevier, it was Frontiers. There were different kind of people, because you cannot discuss about the future of scholarly publication and put them apart, because they have the whole system in their hands. But there are some initiatives, and actually they are publishers, that they are open access publishers. There is an organization which is called OASPA, Open Access Scientific Publishers, that they are addressing new business models to have a business, because it's legal to get money. The science could be a business in some points, and it's nice to make money, but it's a reasonable thing. This reminds me when there was the bubble of the buildings in Spain, that it was a guy in the television that he said, I built this building for 14 million of pesetas, and I got money, believe me. It's possible that you get money. The point is that these people, they get such a huge amount of money that is not reasonable. So the new business models are going to go through the initiatives of new publishers that they want to, but the problem is that they have to beat in the Elsevier world. That is, the rules are maintained by there. But there are new publishers, and also there are new initiatives. It was in my slides, I didn't have the time to explain. There is a practical commitment for implementation from the libraries. They are around 15 or 16 universities that they say, well, we have these infrastructures, we have the repositories, like you have an archive in your discipline. We want to make an alternative platform to validate our publications through the repositories, because it's something that is already there. They are initiatives that they try to make business model, sustainable infrastructures, and things that they can more or less in a reasonable, what is reasonable means, way to publish new things. Oh, sorry.
I have a couple of points that go towards two of the central dogmas of these open science policies. The first is relates to one of these cartoons on the taxpayers' money, which involves that they should get their returns in the form of direct access to the results, which I think is fundamentally flawed. In the same way, taxpayers pay for the best surgeons, pay for bridges, and they don't need access to how the surgeons do the surgery or how like the bridges are built. They just want good surgeons and good engineering. There's outreach. So that it's good that there is communication of the science to the public, but I think that the argument for making direct access to the public of the results of the data is not correct. The second point is about this rationale of making top-down policies, which again I think is well not sensible. And for example, in this aspect of the Plan S has resulted in not asking scientists about what we need. And for example, for chemists and physicists who are, I think, overrepresented in the audience, will result in over 55% of the usual journals not being accessible. And I think that's a result of these top-down approaches. So I think, well, probably a bottom-up approach would have worked way better.
They both are needed. They both are needed. You need a top-down because you need the motivators of will very clear stated, but also you need the practical commitment for implementation at research level. I have two answers very clear. When you said that the be publicly available, when you said about the surgeries of the bridges, that we don't give the citizens the results. It's not true, because when we give the citizens, when we build up a new bridge, and it is coming out of research, we have to give them the result because it's research. It's not just only performance. You cannot give the performance of your research, but the results, they should be given to the society. And this is very common thing that happen in the scientific world. In the scientific landscape, they say, no, but if you give my research to the normal citizens, they don't understand it. It's your problem, or it's their problem. You don't know which kind of researchers, because Einstein was a guy that was working in the patent office in the morning, and in the afternoon he was an active researcher. So perhaps we have many Einsteins that they pay their taxes and they can't be understanding your papers. The way of closing them, I can buy you the argument that perhaps it's not necessary to open everything, but I can never buy you the argument that it's necessary to close everything. What do you have with closing it? You are missing 2 Einsteins. For me, it's worth it. If there are only 2 Einsteins in the whole Europe, it's worth it to open all the publications. That's it. And it happens to be, they are studies of Sci-Hub. The consumers of Sci-Hub, they are not researchers, the official researchers, because the official researchers, our institutions pay 90 million euros a year only for one publisher to get access to that. The people who access Sci-Hub is the people that they are just amateur scientists. Many times. Yes, they do.
Come to my lab.
They do. No. Well, of course. But they have. But also, you have the option. You have the option to do it legally. You have the option to go to legally.
I don't.
You don't. You don't have access. You don't have access to the publications.
Practically not.
So thank you very much for addressing this, because it's another reason to make this really the by default situation. And it's a legal situation. That's why the authors have to keep the copyright. But in the studies, believe me, in the studies of the consuming Sci-Hub is not from the labs. Of course, they are also for the labs. But in general terms, in the institutions, we have an alternative legal access that sometimes I have to recognize that I access Sci-Hub, but not from my computer in my university, because I'm deputy vice rector for policies, I cannot do that in my university. But I can do it in another location. Probably that's why the IP locations are addressing this kind of studies. But there is no reason to close it. And related to the second question, there was about, what was it? The top-down, I agree completely with you, because the top-down is just, you oblige me, and the first reaction is I'm against you. What I say is that you have to have top-down and also bottom-up things, and give the tools and skills, because to be an open scientist, it has not to be another work that you have to do at the side of being in a research lab. So you have to do your research. You research in physics, do that. And somebody else can help you to do this easily addressable. And what you mentioned about the chemist and the physics, you are right, because it was actually in the planets when it was issued, there was an open letter that it was addressed from a friend of mine, that she's an activist, Lynn Camerlin, an activist on open access. She was one of the authors of the Skills and Reward System reports, but she belongs to a discipline where the practice is to publish APCs in hybrid model. The complaint about the chemist is that keep me my model of I'm doing all the time. And excuse me, but I think I was against one of the arguments that they say, because this is against of the freedom of the researcher. No, it's not against the freedom of the researcher, or it's not less against the freedom of the researcher that is publishing in Q1. I have to publish in Q1 because the rankings, my university, my career, obliges me to publish in the Q1. So I can say to publish in high impact factor journals is against my research freedom. Actually, it is. But everything is against your research freedom, because the motivators of top-down just became that. But what you said about the chemist is that they have this practice, and that's why when in the implementation plan we say, well, you have to address top-down and bottom-up, and ask the researchers. For example, what I want to happen in Spain is that they have a consultation mode. About the indicators now, I don't want to come up with another declaration. I want to have a consultation. Because if not, it's happening, what I said is I'm a librarian by training, and I said many times that we have the enlightened despotism of science, which is all for the researcher, but without the researcher. So we are going to make Plan S for you guys, but we didn't ask you if you want it. And also, in different disciplines, is what happened with the EOSC, with the European Open Science Club, which is going to be a very difficult infrastructure to establish and to maintain, because different disciplines are absolutely different. You cannot have, there is an Einstein, they say that it's from Einstein, that they say you want to assess a monkey, an elephant, and I don't know what it was the other, and a fish. And the proof to assess them is to climb a tree. You cannot assess physicists, humanities, and social scientists for the same argument, because the elephant is not gonna climb the tree like the monkey. For example, there are disciplines that they are in a very well position for Plan S. There are disciplines that they are absolutely against of Plan S, but it's based on the tradition at vertical practicalities mode. Think about it, because it's very much addressing the field. It's because of the field.
So, I mean, this is a fantastic topic, but we may be running out of time, and there are already some questions, so I have counted at least 3 of them, so please try to keep them questions and answers short. Raúl, first.
So, while you were giving your talk, there was one aspect that was worrying me, which is that, in my opinion, we should not be discussing about open science, we should be discussing about better science, and what is a better way of spending public resources, into contributing to society and so on. And there are some aspects of open sciences in which that actually contribute towards that. For instance, open access or reproducibility of science. But there were some other aspects that actually gave me the impression that could go towards worse science. For instance, these nano publications, or forcing you to release your data before you have time to analyze these things. And I think it's related to the picture that you put at the beginning, right? Comparing the 19th century scientists that was focused on nature, whereas now it was focusing on publishing in Nature. So if you actually take all open science for granted as something good, I think we might be pushing science towards further away from actually finding out about nature.
I completely agree with you. I cannot be more, I can tell you something, one sentence. Openness is a clear invitation to quality. And I will give you just one example. I was leading the MOOCs initiative in my university, the massive open online courses. If you do a MOOC for the whole world, you spend hours preparing a plot for the class. When you close the door of your class, you can say whatever you want. Openness is a clear invitation to quality.
Yeah, I think you paint a bit of a dull picture of a researcher. I don't identify myself when you say that we have to be open or that open science is excellence, as if it were something that we are not doing. So, I mean, I think all of us, we are discussing data with our colleagues, and we are doing that. When we publish, I don't publish my data because I hide them until them. It's just because I need also time to analyze them, as you said before. And if I spam the internet or whatever with all my data that I didn't even think about, I don't think, we make us lose time. So this is a filter, I think, that is just normal. One thing that you say about the open science, I think that's great to put the data available for everybody. What I fear is if the Commission is involved, and I'm also involved in these things, that will be kind of a structure that will be imposed from top down on the people. It will make you lose a lot of time to understand how you should put the data, and then you put them, and then it doesn't fit with the other data and whatever. So I think there's lots of talking about this, and especially you say Carlos Moedas, I mean, he's also about the European Research, the European Innovation Council. So I wonder why. You have your open science, open data. Where's the innovation then? Where's the intellectual property rights, etc., etc.? So I think all of you, I think your talk was nice and very, very interesting, very enthusiastic. I thought very nice. But I think the whole thing, if you go very complex, that's exactly against science. Science should be very simple. What we want to do is science. We want to think. We want to have the time to think, to do our work, and not to stick to any administrative rules, because I think we have far too much already.
Thank you very much for your comment. I cannot be more agree. It's absolutely exactly what you said. And it's not a question of good science and bad science. It's that science has to be simple and good and open by default. Because if you put it behind the paywalls, it's because of the system, an economic system that we, the scientists, we don't agree upon. We go through because we have to, but I agree completely with that. And the open innovation is for speaking for 3 more days, because I don't believe it, and it's it's one of the challenges that I would like to just think you and your house when you have time for a coffee, about the new Open Innovation Council, the Research European Council, the European Innovation Council. It's going to be a way of making companies overfunded by public money. It is very, very difficult issues, but there are things that we have to think over, because the same way that we make pictures 50 years ago in one way, and we make pictures now with our phone, the science has to take advantage of the simplest way of digital technologies to make better science more attractive to everybody, including the scientist. Thank you very much for your comment.
So, very last question, yes.
So how it's going to be possible to control that people that is participating in that open access will put all the information that they have, and they don't keep that information for them? Because now in a lot of articles, you try to reproduce them or whatever, and you find out that there is not all the information that you should need. So maybe people is taking advantage of your methodology, but they are not giving you all the information because they want to have higher impact or whatever.
Exactly. That's part of the attitude of the human, not the scientist, it's part of the human being attitude. You just hide some things, because I remember when I was a student, I went to the library. If I need a book, I put it in another shelf, so I keep it for myself. That's human being attitude. So if you want to have a patent, everybody has done this. I don't care if you are recording me, everybody has done this. But if you do that with your research data, it's absolutely human nature, because you want to have a patent, because you want to have a paper, or because you want to be so generous. But the point is that if we can make that the by default situation is that we have enough books, so I don't have to cheat and put the book in another shelf. If we have enough quality of science, then we don't need to cheat, because you cheat because it is attached a reward system. If the reward system, which is the bottleneck, change, everything will change. But it's going to be difficult. I want you to be part of the story. So we have to cut.
I'm afraid so.
It is absolutely amazing discuss with you guys. Thank you very much.
So, what I was going to say is, thank you very much, Eva, for being here. So, this is such a hot topic that we might be here until the evening. So, but let me just mention one thing that after your talk, one of the conclusions might be that actually many of us, so we are doing science, and in a way we are also doing open science, even without knowing that. So, many of these things that you have been discussing is what we usually do in our, let's say, day-to-day life. So, thank you very much, Eva, for this first visit.
Thank you very much. Dijo la presentación aquí por si alguien la quiere. Como tiene enlaces y cosas así.